We are joined now by Shen, the NITRC Community Liaison for the Imaging Genomics domain at NITRC. Tell me, Lee, why is making more information about imaging genomic tools and resources important to the community?
Oh, hi, David. Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me here. So, basically, I feel like imaging genomics, actually, it is an emerging research field. And so it is actually very important. So given that there's a lot of like high throughput genotyping sequencing data available, then multimodal imaging data available. So that actually gives us opportunity. Actually, we can use imaging as phenotype to study genetics and compared with, say, case control, say the GWAS, the binary outcome. We actually now have a lot of information captured by the imaging traits. So potentially they can provide, say, more statistical power, and also we can use that to figure out the biological pathway, say from the genetic predictors to molecular signature to imaging phenotype, right? And then to phenotypic outcome, right? So we have kind of more powerful tools to figure out the biological pathway that will give us a lot of potential to advance biomedical research. And so these tools and resources are so important that basically both imaging genomic data are very high dimensional, very complicated. You can look at the things at multiple scales, at the SNPs, genes, pathways. In the imaging domain, you can look at the voxels, ROIs, and say brain networks. So there are a lot of like computational and informatics like challenges. So actually this is not only just a promising field, but also it is very actively studied. So that's why there are a lot of like new resources coming up, like large scale landmark biobanks, right? And then also a lot of like computational and say machine learning development. So there will be a lot of like tools and resources available. So that's why I think making this available is very important to the community.
Great. So would you say that there are already existing standards for connecting imaging and genomics and phenotypes, or is that still an emerging field?
Yeah, I think it's still an emerging field, although there are some like standard kind of protocol. So say setting up by some larger scale consortium like say Enigma. So if you want to increase statistical power, I think the naive solution is kind of you can increase the sample size, right? But that actually that requires a lot of resource. So, but what Enigma does is they actually they form a collaborative consortium, but people don't share the data directly; they share the results. So the consortium actually will develop some standard protocol for say doing genome-wide association study of the imaging phenotypes, and each site actually run the same protocol, and then the headquarters will collect all the findings and then actually do the meta-analysis. So they actually reported a lot of high-profile findings which are missed by the individual site, but it actually can be discovered through the meta-analysis. So these protocols are actually pretty standard, widely accepted by kind of different groups, and so if you are interested in this field, you can adopt their kind of protocol. But on the other hand, there are a lot of other say developments. So in addition to doing this meta-analysis, there are now people are doing like a federated learning, like so the data are also distributed at different sites, but we can run machine learning, like say deploy the same, we don't share the data, but we share the actual implementation software, right? But this is a very actively studied field. So people are still working on like innovative strategies, how to do this kind of analysis and in this setup, like more efficiently and effectively.
Great. And you mentioned the Enigma consortium, very famous and popular group. Are there other consortiums or groups that are similarly important in the field?
Oh yeah, in terms of the imaging genomics, yeah, there's a lot, I think, right? So certainly the Enigma is more like the meta-analysis consortium, but the most famous like mega-analysis consortium is the UK Biobank, right? They collect the genotyping data from 500,000 participants. The imaging is a little bit less, but eventually they will have like 100,000 participants. They will have the imaging data. And recently, I think probably just a week or a couple of weeks ago, they published a large scale imaging genetic study, like on 40,000 subjects doing I think they looked at the 4,000 imaging driven phenotype. So then publish the results. That will provides a great landscape for understanding the genetic basis of those brain phenotypes. So yeah, that's another kind of famous consortium, I think, in imaging genetics. There's a lot like the Human Connectome Project, a lot of others. So
I often use the term imaging genomics. Is that the same as imaging genetics, or is there anything a lay user like myself should be careful about, the term genetics versus genomics?
I think imaging genomics might be more like it's broader, like so because genomics probably also includes in the broad sense it can include the genetics, but there's a lot of molecular signature like the omics data. So like the transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, epigenetics. I think they all probably you can group them into the genomic kind of category. So maybe the imaging genomics is a broader term. So that's my understanding. Probably just my personal opinion. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that distinction.
The methods and the tools, right? Certainly, those are the very valuable resources also. Like if you want to do, say, if we study imaging as phenotype, first thing is we want to estimate kind of whether the imaging phenotype is heritable, right? Only a phenotype is heritable when then we study genetics, look for the say which part of the genome contributing to this phenotypic variation. So there are some tools available on NITRC listed, like the solar eclipse and like another one is called massively expedited genome-wide heritability analysis. So these are for heritability estimation. And other tools like you do the genome-wide association study, like PLINK or other, if you want to look at the gene interaction, SNP interaction. So there's this MDR, so multi-factor dimensionality reduction. And then if you want to annotate your genetic data, like there's a ANOVA, like this kind of for functional annotated genetic variation. The DB SNP, you can find so if you have some findings, then what are the relevant kind of other functions and things associated with that SNP, right? And so some knowledge database, like to archive the genetic findings, like there's a brain imaging genetics knowledge portal, so listed. And certainly a lot of methods for doing the imaging genetic analysis, like say doing fast voxel-wise, the GWAS, right? And also the imaging-wide genetic association study. So, and the new things about the deep learning. So there's these deep collaborative learning tool available. So you can actually try to identify the imaging genetic association, but at the same time, we want to integrate those together to better predict the outcome. So these are some examples of imaging genetic resources.
Is there a lot of genomics data itself at NITRC?
So yeah, I think most of those are listed as resources, not instead of in the imaging repository, because the imaging repository is kind of like devoted to upload mostly the imaging data sets. But I think if you have genetic data sets you want to share, so you are also welcome to upload your data sets to the NITRC. But a lot of these biomarkers will actually have link to their websites, and some of those are actually stored in the like the cloud, like NIGATs. Everything is in the Amazon cloud, right? UK Biobank probably also doing similar things, right? ADNI is hosted at University of Southern California, the LONI, the famous like LONI group, I guess. So yeah, you can find those the links to the actual data set. So it should be available.
And I think that it's important to note that while NITRC hosts certain content, NITRC can also help you find content that's located other places. So just because it's hosted elsewhere, NITRC can still help integrate that together. So I know you're aware of the NITRC computational environment and some of the computational tools there. Is there tools that do imaging genomics as part of that resource?
Yeah, I think definitely. So I think most of the tools are in the computational environment are more like the widely accepted and people very popular image processing pipelines, right? Like the AFNI, ANTS, or FreeSurfer. So a lot of these things, definitely we need those in imaging genetic analysis, because a lot of imaging genomic analysis, we don't work on the voxels, right? First, we need to extract the features from those MRI scans, PET scans, right? So we do need these tools. And on the genomic side, I think most of the tools are available like as open source software tools, although they are not incorporated in the computational environment kind of by default, but you can actually install that. You can add that to the environment to run the genetic analysis. Like you can run the PLINK to do the GWAS of the imaging phenotype extracted from the FreeSurfer. So, and also you can install, say, solar eclipse to study the heritability or do the association analysis. So I think so there's a lot of kind of potential. You can use the computational environment to run the imaging genetic analysis.
Great, and I think it's a good point also that despite what's initially installed in those environments, they're extensible, and so one can always add other things if we haven't pre-added that for you, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
So a general question, if I am a developer of some imaging genomics resource, what do you recommend that I do?
Yeah, certainly actually, since we're kind of our focus is on the NITRC, so basically we actually welcome actually you kind of share your software tools. And so I think basically first thing is probably package your software tool in a user-friendly fashion, provide some documentation, maybe give a tutorial, and with some examples so that people can learn how to use the software tool, right? So I guess probably you want to put it in GitHub or somewhere else, like maybe in a cloud-based environment. So we know that a lot of data are already in the cloud. So sometimes you don't, especially if in the Amazon cloud, the data is, if the data is huge, then you don't want to download that because that costs a lot of money, right? So if you have, say, your tool already available, implemented in the cloud, then people can just go there to run it because the data are already also in the cloud. So that will be probably another way to do the actual research, right? And certainly we would like to welcome you to list your tool on NITRC so that we can help promote your tools.
Great. And if I know about some imaging genomics resource that isn't listed in NITRC, what should I do?
Yeah, so I think we have, so if you go to NITRC website, so there's a contact us page. So just to reach out to us so that we can reach out to the developer, and so that to encourage them to list those valuable tools, resources on NITRC. And other things, there's also a community forum on NITRC website. You may want to also mention that so that just in case the tool is not available in the NITRC, you can still let the community know about these valuable tools, right?
All right, that's a great idea to use the NITRC community resource, community discussion forums for doing that. And I guess if I know the tool developer, I should bug them and tell them to, hey, list that at NITRC.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
So is there anything else in general that you'd like folks to know about the imaging genomics domain at NITRC?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, like, so the imaging genomics is a important research field, emerging and very important, right? So maybe because I'm doing actually research in Alzheimer's disease, so in AD domain, I think a major challenge is that there's no drug that can modify AD at this moment, right? So the whole point is we want to find some say genetic mechanism and to look for the targets and then find a drug that can modify that. And so in this sense, actually, previously people are doing, say, the GWAS study, and we need a large sample example, like the sample size to identify genetic effects with small effect size. But now we have a lot of like these powerful imaging phenotypes. So people are actually collecting also, in addition to the genotyping sequencing data, also the imaging data, right? So we use imaging to study genetics, and there's a great potential. We can identify, say, more like innovative imaging biomarkers, and using imaging, we can actually also study, say, the subtypes, right? Because the disease may not be homogeneous, could be there's heterogeneity. Then to enable precision medicine and try to figure out, say, the pathway from genetics to molecular signatures, then to the imaging phenotype, to the cognitive phenotypic outcome that can help us to better model the disease and try to identify promising like targets and the drugs. So I think the imaging genomics can help a lot. So in this field, so I would like to encourage people to use a NITRC. Maybe if you are interested in this field, try to find the tools and use the tools, provide some feedbacks to help develop. Maybe they can further improve the tools. And so if you have some findings, you have new methods, I would like to encourage to you actually contribute these tools to the community and list them on the NITRC. Thank you.
Great, and thank you so much for joining us today, and Lee, and thank you for leading the imaging genomics domain.
Great, yeah, it's my pleasure. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here.